everyone. It's Michelle Caruana from Play Cafe Academy and Profitable Play. And I wanted to make this video. I think it's really important because something that I've been hearing from my one-on-one consulting clients and inside of Playmaker Society. And real quick, if you don't know, Playmaker Society is my membership for current and prospective indoor playground owners who have taken my Play Cafe Academy course. I have over 280 amazing owners inside of there. It is such a supportive community, and you can learn more about it in the video description if you haven't heard about it yet. But anyways, something that I've been hearing a lot is that it is really difficult right now to find a space. There was this time immediately after the pandemic when a lot of businesses closed where there were vacancies left and right. There were a lot of available spaces in almost every area. And we've seen that tide kind of shift. And now it's really difficult to find the perfect space for your indoor playground business. Now, I just want to get started by saying that, and I literally just typed this comment out to somebody inside of Playmaker Society. Something that I always like to remind people, and something I want to remind you of right now, is that I have never met an indoor playground owner who regretted waiting for the perfect space to open up. However, I have met a ton of owners who have a lot of regrets and who specifically regret rushing and signing a lease that was too expensive, or maybe it wasn't the perfect space or location, or something just wasn't quite right, but they rushed the process because they were either too excited or too impatient. And yes, I am absolutely included in that. As you guys know, I talk about all the time on this channel. I signed a lease that was too expensive. It wasn't the perfect space. I wish I would have waited a couple more months for the perfect space to open up. So again, I am not innocent in this. I absolutely made this mistake myself, and I don't want to see you make that mistake. So I wanted to start this video out with that little piece of advice that I love to give. But in this video, I want to talk about how you can make a smaller space work. Now, again, I really want you, if you have a vision of a specific size space, so I'm talking, 4 to 10,000 square feet, I want you to hold out and wait for that perfect space if it aligns with your business vision. However, if you see yourself in a smaller space, so I'm talking anywhere from, 1,800 square feet up to 4,000 square feet, something like that, I want to give you some tips about how we made our smaller space work. Now, our first location was 2,500 square feet. And our second location was a little bit bigger. It was around 3,500 square feet. And again, I fixed a lot of the mistakes that I made with our first location and our space for our second location, but it still wasn't perfect. But again, if you see yourself in a similar size space, or you just want to make the most of the space that you have in your building, I wanted to give you some tips. And in this video, I'm going to share 5 tips about how you can make a smaller space work based on my own experience. But if you know or follow, or if you own a play space that makes a smaller space work, I would love to feature them. So please, in the comments, let me know websites to check out, or let me know your website or your Instagram handle. I would love to do a part 2 of this video where I share how other businesses utilize either these same tips, just maybe in a different or unique way, or utilize different tips, because I want everybody on this channel to be able to benefit from that, especially if they're working with a smaller space due to this limited real estate market that we have, especially on the commercial side. So the first tip I wanted to give, and I've talked about this before, is to utilize wall space as much as you can. Our 2 big cornerstones, I guess you could call it, of our indoor playground play area were our 2 Lilliput play homes. And at the beginning of, our opening process, when we were first doing our grand opening and navigating those first few very difficult months, we were crazy busy. We were still working out the kinks. And one of those kinks was that we noticed that all of the kids would kind of congregate and hover around these playhouses because they were the most exciting things about our play area. So within the first year, I noticed, okay, I got to figure out how to spread this traffic around our play area a bit more, because there was so much space that just wasn't being utilized. Sure, we had, a reading nook, we had a dress up corner, we had a caterpillar, we had a slide, we had a bunch of stuff going on, but we noticed that, again, all of the concentration was happening in the playhouses, and it was causing a lot of crowds. It was causing not a great play experience, and it was making it such that we couldn't accept as many kiddos as we knew we could potentially if we had them spread out a little bit more. So what I did is I went to sensoryedge.com and I purchased a ton of wall equipment. And I'm going to share some pictures of it. But adding these pieces of equipment really helped that traffic to spread out from concentrating on those playhouses. And it encouraged kids to utilize those wall spaces. And as an added bonus, these wall pieces made our space a lot more inclusive. Even though both of our playhouses had a ramp for kiddos in wheelchairs, it made our space a lot more inclusive because kiddos that didn't want to be part of that crowd, people that didn't want to, for whatever reason, play in the playhouses. Maybe it was too echoey. Maybe it was, again, too crowded. It allowed kids of all abilities to kind of remove themselves from the busiest areas of the play area and have a little bit of fine motor activity, a little bit of quiet alone time, which I know as a mother of an autistic kid is very, very important. I didn't know that at the time. I hadn't even given birth to my son yet, but this is something that I kind of had to learn along the way. So utilize wall space as much as possible. And this isn't just for inside of your play area. This is for your check-in area. This is for the cafe side of your business as well. We utilized wall toys as much as possible to make the check-in process easier for parents so that they weren't having to, hold their kid back from the play area while they were signing the waiver and while they were listening to our little spiel and waiting for their coffee. It gave the kids something to do so that we could talk to the parents and make sure they understood the rules, make sure they were all settled and comfortable, and just make that first interaction that that parent is having in our play area as positive as possible. And we also had that little quiet corner on our cafe side that a lot of people used for breastfeeding or pumping or just having a conversation with a friend. So having sensory toys and as many wall toys as possible in that area allowed us to have maximum seating because these toys and these wall pieces don't take up a lot of space, but it allowed the kiddos, the older kiddos, to have something to do while the parents or caregivers were talking or breastfeeding or whatever they were going to utilize that space for. So put in your budget wall toys. I highly, highly recommend it. All right, the next thing we did to make the use of our small space is we utilized offsite storage. Now, there is a little caveat here, but we had a storage unit outside of our space where we put any seasonal decor, any holiday decor, and we put a lot of our excess paper products that we just weren't going to use within the next month or so. Now, we did like to save as much money as possible by buying in bulk so that we could then pass the savings on to our customers or pay ourselves more as owners. But it was just too cumbersome to keep all of that stuff, especially the bulkier pieces of equipment and decor and games and things like that on site. So we paid about $90 a month for our offsite storage unit. It was less than a mile from the cafe. And it was very easy for me to go there maybe once or twice a month to pick up the supplies that we needed for that month, replace it with the stuff that we were ready to put away or toys that we were ready to rotate. We had a lot of our soft play equipment in there as well. It wasn't a super large space. It was a narrow, about, I would say, 5 by 3 foot space or something along those lines. We had racks of wire shelves so that we could easily organize everything and label everything. But that offsite storage was really a game changer because once we had a manager, it allowed her to make those drop offs and pickups as well, removing more responsibility from myself as the owner, which of course is the goal. And I didn't want to house all of this stuff in our basement. I think my husband might have divorced me. We did keep some stuff at our house, especially those toys that we were rotating that my kids really enjoyed playing with. But again, that offsite storage was really a game changer because we didn't need to work that into our build out or anything like that. Now, the caveat that I wanted to mention, and this is a point that I want to give, credit where credit is due. Alicia from Gentle Hands in Tallahassee, California, she brought this up in Playmaker Society just last week. She said, yeah, offsite storage is great for making as best use of a small space as possible. However, something that she really regrets doing is not having enough storage for things like balloon orders or balloon garlands. Now, this is something that wasn't really in vogue or on trend when I first started operating my business. Balloon garlands and balloon art and things like that were something that we added much later. So this isn't something that I had really considered when I built out my space, and it isn't something that Alicia had taken into consideration either, but it's something that she really regrets. So I wanted to insert that little tip in here. if balloons or balloon art or balloon garlands is going to be a crucial part of your business model. And if you watched my balloon training from Tal from Art Factory and Play Cafe, I can link it in this video description. I highly recommend watching it. She is one of the most successful Play Cafe owners that I work with in Playmaker Society. She's currently expanding, and balloons is a huge revenue generator for her. So I'm going to link that video. But yes, offsite storage is great for, again, things like holiday decor, seasonal decor, excess paper product storage, party storage, things like that. But you do want to make sure that you have enough on-site storage for things like balloon orders. And I regret not having a separate room in our space. I talk about this again all the time, so I'm not going to harp on it too much here, but I do really regret not having a small extra room in our first location. This is a mistake that we corrected in our second location, but we didn't have a separate room to host classes, to host summer camps, to have parties during open play or anything like that. And I really regret it. So adding a smaller multi-use room to your facility for, again, any of those things I mentioned, not only can open your space up and make it more versatile, it can also allow you to add these other revenue streams to your business. So I highly recommend having at least one small multi-purpose room in your space if you can allow for that in your build out, but you can also utilize offsite storage space. But I did want to mention that. So thank you so much for that tip, Alicia. All right, the next tip that I wanted to give is that we utilized counter seating. So as you guys know, if you've ever seen our space before, we had a 3-foot wall that separated the cafe side of our business from the play area side of our business. And we had a little gate that separated the two, so it kept the kiddos very contained. And no matter where you were on that cafe side of the wall, you could see pretty much the entire play area and the baby area and all that good stuff. So along that 3-foot wall, we had cafe stools pushed up against that counter. And that's where a lot of parents chose to sit if they were, watching multiple kiddos, or if they didn't really want to be too involved in the play area, or if they just wanted to overlook the play area. Maybe their kiddos were a little bit older, but it allowed them to supervise really effectively while allowing us to kind of make that seating area very small because it wasn't full tables. Now, on the other side of that wall, we also had about a 2-foot or about a 3-foot space of wood flooring inside of the actual play area. And all along that wall, we also had small round cafe tables where a lot of people also chose to sit. Maybe if their kiddos were a little bit younger, or they needed a bit more intervention while they were playing, or the parents just wanted to be a little bit closer to the kiddos and have easier access to them should an issue arise, or should they just want to get up and play alongside their children. So I really liked having this versatile seating, and the cafe counter sat about 10 people at any given time. Sometimes we removed stools, we replaced stools. Those stools kind of they were wooden, they were very aesthetic, but they didn't hold up very well. I got them at Home Goods or something like that. So while we could have sat up to, 10 to 12 people at the counter, at any given time, we probably had between 6 to 8 stools. And then on the other side, we had about 8 tables, each sitting 2 people each. So I'm picturing it now, and I'm going to share a picture. Probably in a 4-foot span, we were able to add all of that seating. And because our play area was pretty small, there wasn't room for a huge couch or anything like that. So this seating really allowed us to give as many people a place to sit as possible without having to take up too much space or take away from any of the actual play area. We did have one couch inside of our baby area for parents who wanted to nurse or parents who just wanted a comfortable place to sit, but that was kind of off to the side. We did sometimes bring that couch into our play area when we were rotating things or when we were refreshing our space, but again, it typically stayed inside of the baby area. All right, my next tip is another one that we didn't start with, just like utilizing our wall space, but it's something that we added about a year in after it became very apparent that it was necessary, and that is stackable tables and chairs. So as you likely know, we started with these really horrific black tables with a center post that had really sharp corners. And this actually wasn't my mistake, so I'm not owning up to this one. We ordered this really expensive restaurant furniture from a supplier, and they sent us the wrong ones. They were supposed to be like almost a birch wood finish, so a very, very light grain wood. They were supposed to have rounded corners, and they still were supposed to have the center post. So that is one mistake I will cop to. but they sent us the wrong ones. And basically after that, they dropped off the face of the planet. I couldn't call them, I couldn't email them, could not get a hold of them. They basically refused to refund any money, and they refused to replace the furniture with the correct furniture. So honestly, it was just a nightmare. And the center post caused the tables to become really wobbly very quickly because kids love to put their elbows on the table. Again, that's something that I've talked about in depth on this channel, so I'm not going to harp on it again here. However, when we replace these tables, we replace them with Amazon metal tables. And I'm going to share a picture, and I will also link to these tables in the video description. But they were a game changer for our business because they allowed us to, again, make our space more versatile, which is a theme that you're going to notice throughout this video. So we were able to stack all of these chairs, put them to the side as well as the tables, and do things like mommy and me yoga. We were able to complete deep cleans a lot more effectively and a lot easier. We were able to take the tables for offsite usage or take the chairs in our van and take them to a soft play rental. It allowed us to, again, diversify our revenue streams, diversify our space, and it allowed us to use our small space for many different purposes, which again, I think is so important. Now, the last tip I wanted to give isn't something that I personally did. I really don't regret not doing this in our space because I think our space was a perfect square. The 3-foot wall really worked out. I love the way we set up our cafe seating, as I just mentioned a moment ago. But if you have even a smaller space, so again, our space was 2,500 square feet, but there are a lot of indoor playgrounds I work with that are even smaller. So between 1,500 to, again, that 2,500 square foot range is what I would consider the smallest footprint, the smallest space that I see an indoor playground occupy. And a lot of those smaller spaces that are less than 2,500 square feet, I see them using temporary or movable walls. And the best example I have of this is Everblock walls. Now, if you watch the tour I did with Tiffany from My Play Cafe in Missouri, she has these Everblock walls, and I absolutely love it because it allows for, again, that lower wall so people can see the play area from anywhere they are in the facility. It also allows her to rearrange her space, which she has done a couple times. And I think this is really important for those smaller spaces. So again, if you're planning on working with a smaller space, consider saving a little bit of money on your build out and making your space more versatile by using something like Everblock walls instead of building the walls out permanently in your facility. All right, that wraps up today's quick video. If you have any spaces to share that are doing a small space build out really well, or if you have any tips from your own space to share, please share them in the comments. I would love to highlight your space or a space that you follow in the comments so that we can see some more examples of way to utilize a small space effectively. All right, have a great day, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet so you never miss a video. Subscribe to my Profitable Play podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out all of my resources, whether it's the resources I mentioned throughout the video or any of my free or premium resources. They're all linked in the video description. All right, guys, I will see you soon.